Ohio State football has become a factory at the wide receiver position, with just in recent memory, you've had players like Chris Olave, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Garrett Wilson, Marvin Harrison Jr., Emeka Egbuka, and now Jeremiah Smith. There is one guy who is currently on Ohio State's roster who could be the most underrated of the bunch. He's currently projected to be a first-round pick, but with how good Jeremiah Smith is, he has been overshadowed. He also has a super inspiring and difficult story, and in today's video, we're going to spotlight Carnell Tate. Not only has he become a star for the Ohio State Buckeyes, but he could be really good on Sundays. Today we're going to tell his story, talk about how he got here, and how good he can be. But before we get started, if you're a big fan of college football, be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like if you want to support today's video, and let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I can cover next. Now let's go ahead and get started and talk about the insane rise of Carnell Tate. Okay, so in order to talk about how Tate got to this point, we first need to go back in time. He was inspired by players like Julio Jones and Michael Thomas, as he loved the way Julio ran routes, and he loved how Michael Thomas caught everything he touched. Carnell Tate grew up in the city of Chicago, and growing up he was a star athlete, and would eventually arrive at Marist High School in 2019 as a freshman. He was a decent player, but he ended up proving to the coaching staff he was legit, as he was called up to varsity mid-season and ended up catching 28 passes for 444 yards and 5 touchdowns. This was huge though for Tate, as Marist's head coach could only remember 2 freshmen coming in and competing, and both of them ended up playing high-level football, one of them going to Notre Dame and the other going to Northwestern. Unfortunately, he would not play as a sophomore in 2020 due to everything going on in the world, as Illinois high school football decided to postpone fall sports. But by this time, Carnell Tate already was getting recruiting attention. He had been tabbed as the #1 recruit in the state of Illinois, and he said, quote, "I wasn't expecting it to blow up as much, it came as a surprise. It's early in my high school career, and it's been crazy, and it was shocking to see recruiters notice me this early." He was one of the top high school football recruits in the class of 2023 already, and he faced a difficult decision. He could remain at Marist High School or transfer to IMG Academy in Florida. Both of them had their advantages, but as Tate was trying to decide where to play high-level football, he figured going to IMG was the best option. He said, quote, "It was definitely a tough decision. It's been great at IMG. Transferring to IMG, it's getting ready for the next level and having that college lifestyle." At 6'2" and 175 pounds, he gained early offers from schools like Notre Dame, Arizona State, and Oregon State. His head coach was sorry to see Carnell go, but he understood the decision. He said, quote, "You hate to see a kid of this caliber leave, and that's not just a football statement. Carnell is a great kid, and we wish him well, and I hope he does great things down there and achieves every goal he sets for himself." By the time he had blown up at IMG, he had received 36 Power 5 offers, but he grew up dreaming of one in particular, and that was from Ohio State. He said, quote, "I love their tradition, I have family in Ohio, and we love them. I've always grown up watching them since Michael Thomas, and they always put on a show, and I was at a loss for words when they offered me." The affinity he had for Ohio State had never waned, as eventually he was a 5-star recruit, and many projected him to commit to Ohio State. But there was another school that was going to make a run at him, and that was the Tennessee Volunteers. They played down in the SEC, were sending star talent off to the NFL, and he was close with Nico Imaliava. He said, quote, "We talk all the time, almost every day to catch up and see how each other are doing, and he checks in on me, and I check in on him." Where would he end up going? Well, he would choose the Buckeyes, as his commitment video featured several clips of downtown Chicago where he grew up. He ultimately chose Ohio State over tons of offers, and the other finalists were LSU, Notre Dame, and Tennessee. The Buckeyes were the favorite to land Tate for quite some time, and he was at the top of their recruiting board, but he had to hold off a late push by the Volunteers. According to the 24/7 Sports Composite, he became the 5th 5-star receiver to sign with the Buckeyes over the last 5 cycles, including Emeka Egbuka, Julian Fleming, Jackson Smith-Njigba, and Garrett Wilson. These guys range from the 2019 to the 2021 class. According to 24/7 Sports, Carnell Tate was a 5-star recruit, the #3 wide receiver, and the 22nd best player in the class of 2023. So, how did he end up doing at Ohio State? Well, let's take a look. So when Carnell arrived at Ohio State, he was going to get a lot of attention, and with how good Ohio State's receiver core had been, he was expected to be the next one in line. Playing as a true freshman at Ohio State is no easy task, but apparently Marvin Harrison Jr. thought he was legit. He said Carnell Tate was further along in his development than he was, and he said, quote, "Carnell is going to be special. I think Carnell's probably better at this point than I was going into my sophomore year, and he's amazing." Unfortunately though, things were difficult for Carnell when he arrived at Ohio State, and something horribly tragic would happen to his family. Back in July of 2023, his mother was unfortunately killed in a drive-by shooting in Chicago. With how much Tate had already been through in his life, he now had to fight this. He said he now has more determination than most players, since everything he does is now in the honor of his mother. This is honestly absolutely horrible, and I could never imagine something like that, and I definitely am rooting for Carnell Tate to succeed both on and off the field. As a true freshman in 2023, Carnell would play sparingly, but he also made an impact. In total, he caught 18 passes for 264 yards and 1 touchdown. His first career touchdown came against the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers, and going into 2024, they would lose Marvin Harrison Jr., so now he could have an opportunity to play a lot more. The feature receiver was going to be Emeka Egbuka, but Carnell Tate ended up having his breakout season in 2024, at least somewhat. He ended up catching 4 passes for 58 yards and a touchdown in Week 1 against Akron, and then also had 4 more catches against Marshall. He finally had his breakout performance against Nebraska in mid-October, as in that game, he went over the 100-yard mark for the first time, catching 4 passes for 102 yards and a touchdown. Had 6 catches in a shutout over Purdue, and then he'd get a chance to go home. In a road game against Northwestern, which is located in Evanston, a suburb of Chicago, he would end up catching 4 passes for 52 yards, but he had 2 crucial touchdowns in a 31-7 victory. He said he looked into the stands at Wrigley Field and saw a large group of family members and friends. His father, his grandmother, his sister, and this was a super memorable moment in the middle of an emotional day for him. He said, quote, "It was a lot of high emotion and stuff like that, but I had to manage it. It means a lot to me playing back in the city, especially my first time being back since my freshman year of high school, and especially being able to play in front of all my family and friends. This was very special to watch, and he continued to play better football. He had 4 catches for 68 yards in a win over number 5 Indiana, and then caught 6 passes in a loss to Michigan. Ohio State would still make the 2024 college football playoff, and he caught a pass in their blowout victory over Tennessee in round 1. He then also helped them blow out Oregon before having a career-high 7 catches for 87 yards in a win over number 5 Texas. They would now advance to the national championship game, and against number 7 Notre Dame, Carnell caught 2 passes and helped the Buckeyes win a ring. In total, Tate caught 52 passes for 733 yards and 4 touchdowns. He looked like he was going to be a breakout star, and many were projecting him to take a huge leap in 2025. So far, he has done that, as despite battling an injury, he has 39 catches for 711 yards and 7 total touchdowns. Some of that can be thanked to Jeremiah Smith, who's drawing attention away from the opposing team's best players, but he's now breaking out in terms of touchdowns. He had 1 touchdown catch in their win over number 1 Texas, had 1 against Grambling, and then went over 100 yards and a touchdown against Ohio. He'd helped them beat Washington before having a career game against Minnesota. At home against the Gophers, he caught 9 passes for 183 yards and a touchdown, and then he had 4 catches against Illinois, 6 catches for 111 yards and 2 touchdowns against Wisconsin, and then 5 catches for 124 yards and a touchdown against Penn State. As I said, he's had a pretty special season so far, but he has been battling an injury. It seems that Carnell is a bit banged up, as he's missed the last few games and is questionable against Rutgers. I assume some of it is precautionary, as they probably want him at full speed for Michigan and their inevitable 2025 college football playoff run. Looking ahead, he has a chance at being another first-round draft pick for the Ohio State Buckeyes, as in a year that is somewhat down at the receiver spot, Carnell Tate is currently projected to go with the 7th overall pick in a couple of mock drafts. The consensus is that he's the number 12 overall prospect, and no matter what, will go in the first round. Some think maybe he's a little bit inflated due to the success of Ohio State receivers currently in the NFL. Tate is going to be a huge addition to any NFL team, and him getting to this point is awesome. He's overcome a lot in his life, and at a school like Ohio State, it is hard to stand out, especially at the receiver spot, and I hope the best for him moving forwards. But what do you guys think? If you're an Ohio State fan, what do you think of Carnell Tate? Who is the next guy in line for the Buckeyes, and what other players should I cover next? Be sure to let me know down below, leave a like if you want to support today's video, subscribe if you're new, and check out some of the videos on the end screen. Hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.